How did you combine your work and your family while being successful on both sides? Do you have any
Uh,
recommendations for balance?
I was out of balance for me for a lot of years. When I took over Auburn Foundry, you're so focused on being successful that that becomes your priority. And I think that I missed some things during that period. I was fortunate that your mom was willing to step into that role, but I missed a lot of things at that time. And then I think when we started MTI, I got kind of back in that groove again because of the work it took. I think you got to figure out if you want to live to work or work to live. And I think it's been much better in the last 15 years, but there was a period there that things got out of balance a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
I never took work home, so when I came home, I didn't work.
Yeah, that's true.
But I always, but from Sunday till Saturday, it was a 24/7. A lot of trips overseas, a lot of travel, and a lot of time's gone. So,
In your mind, what's the most important quality a leader must have?
honesty,
Yeah.
that'd be number one. Humility, which you learn over time, in my view. I think trust is a big deal, and I think treat people the way you want to be treated. And that doesn't mean you always have to be easiest guy in the room, but you got to have people have to respect you. And I want to hope that I was able to achieve that at some point, you know. And but if you can't be honest with people, and that's sometimes being honest is not telling people what they want to hear; it's being honest.
Yeah.
But I think that combined with trust, you know, will get you where you got to go.
Why do you think people were willing to follow you? And they saw those qualities in you?
Yeah, I think that was some of it, and I think people like opportunity, and I think we were able to create opportunity, and I was never one to develop close personal relationships with a lot of these folks. I never felt I could be their boss and be the guy that was going out and hunting and fishing and playing golf with them all the time. But I wanted them to think they could come to me if they had an issue and I'd help them. And I don't think there was ever an occasion where somebody needed help that we didn't figure out a way to do it. But I wanted to be their leader.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to be the guy that they would feel like no matter what, I was always going to do the right thing and make sure they were taken care of. And I think for the most part people felt that I gave them an opportunity to succeed and I was always going to do the right thing. And I would never ever tell them something and not, good or bad, I would not. They needed a sheet of paper from me. If I said something was going to happen and it didn't work out like I thought it would, it'd still happen for them. So I think that gets you along. It's the only thing you have in life is your word and your actions. And I think I like to believe I was able to walk the talk. So, yeah. And I think the fact that, you know, I was always looking for an opportunity was something people like to see. Not everybody, but you know, guys that were always interested in see what's the next step we could take. And yeah, we were capital constrained, but that again, a lot of the times we figured a way around that, you know.
What characteristic or behavior of yours do you feel was most impactful in creating an employee-centric culture in your status as a great leader?
I don't know if there's any one, you know, I think it goes back to what we talked about.
Yeah.
And I think that you know, I'm not as close to it. I think people today need to be managed differently than I managed them. And I think it requires a different approach than I had. That's not a bad thing. I think it's just a realization that, you know, I grew up in a command and control format, and in a lot of ways we operated that way for many years at MTI, and in a bad way, but you know, it was always, you know, the tough decisions ended up on my desk and I made them. But I would like to think we're migrating away from that to more of a participatory type structure, and where we're pushing things down where they ought to be made down to the plants at times. But I don't think there's any one thing. I think I always tried to be honest and upfront with people and trust them and hold them accountable.
Yeah.
You know, in the right way. And you know, if there's something I didn't see, I didn't mix any. You know, I was not afraid to talk to them about it. But it was always one-on-one, you know, between them and me. You know.
Yeah.
Another thing I wouldn't tolerate is somebody complaining about somebody behind their back. It was always a three-way conversation in my office with the guy that they were talking about, the individual. That put a stop to most of that. You know, that's not good for an organization. We never tolerated that a whole lot. I was naive that didn't go on, but it never landed up on my desk because it was not a pleasant experience to go through that. But I think if you have something to say to somebody, you say it to their face. And I think that's always been a good thing. And it goes back to the honesty thing.
Yeah.
You got to be honest with people, but not in a negative way. You don't have to belittle people or do things like that. Just got to be straightforward.
What type of advice do you have for younger employees to manage their time and be more effective in their positions?
I think it's, you got to find that balance between work and life. And I think I'm not a great example of that because I lost track of that for a lot of years. But I think it goes back to kind of, I plagiarized this from Jeff Saturday, actually, from a trying commencement speech, but his great line, he said, you got to say we want to work to live or live to work. And I think that's the balance. And I think we got to create a culture that we allow people to have time to enjoy their families and not expect them to be so driven that they lose out on that. So,
on the planning side, how did you plan your day? I mean, this question was on planning.
I never left anything on my desk at night. It wasn't because I would put it in a drawer. And a lot of stuff I didn't, I would make it and move off my desk pretty quickly. So I never, I didn't, my day was pretty open. I think, I had few things I did every morning to get started, to make a few phone calls, check with the guys, and I spent most of my time on bigger picture stuff. Talking to people about futuristic things that we might be able to do long term. A lot of travel, trying to meet people. I always wanted to have relationships with our customers at the highest levels, and I think that served us well for a lot of times. Metal Dine was a good example with Roy Parrott. If I needed to call Roy, we could talk.
Yeah.
And I think that world's changed a little bit. But I spent a lot of time building those. A lot of time talking with people outside of the company. And I got involved, not right away, but later on with FEF and AFS. And not that I was a great AFS board member, but I was able to stay connected with a lot of people. And FEF is one I had a passion for, and I think that's a good payback thing. But I spent a lot of my day on, I guess, would you say, more strategic stuff. I get involved in tactical stuff occasionally, but I try not to get down in the weeds with that. And then, we'd have our planning meetings and our report out meetings, but those were usually, I'm not a big meeting person, so it wasn't something I would tie people up a lot in meetings.
You weren't a big report person either. I mean,
No.
you're pretty in your
I could read.
planning
I learned from Dr. Kohlhagen at Luke. He managed a $2 billion at that time Deutschmark company with one sheet of paper, with what he called his critical success factors, and kind of Tom Tushman's methodology. But in this business, there aren't a lot of metrics you have to pay attention to understand how the business is running, and I really followed that. I didn't really get down to two, and I could understand a financial statement. And I always had Jeff Futrell and Frank, and we always got good, solid information. And and the weekly metrics, I paid attention to those. So if I saw something that was trailing the wrong way, I could make a call and figure out what's going on. And usually, just calling somebody, it would point out to them that there's everything to look at. Although we had a few guys that were always ahead of you. Doug Monroe was always 2 steps ahead of where, so I never had to call Monroe and say you need to get on top of a quality issue or, this or that. He was always way ahead of me on that.
Yeah.
So I think that I didn't have to spend a lot of time on those issues. I spent a little bit of time on the capital side, but when Keith was there, even with Mike, I didn't have to spend a lot of time on that. I may argue with him about the amount of money we're spending or if we needed to really do this or that, but as far as a basic outline, no. So most of my time was spent with customers, which you had a big say in, with our banks, with strategic people, seeing what was the best way to position the company. And that sometimes led to where we had opportunity but couldn't take it because we didn't have the capital.
Do you think people make business too complicated at times? I've heard you say that before. It doesn't have to, it can be pretty simple.
Pretty straightforward. Build the right relationship and you do your homework. A lot of people thought I made quick decisions. I never made very many quick decisions. But I made a lot of discussion, not a lot of busy work, but I talked to a lot of people about bounce things off of them. And not inside the company as much as outside, and that was helpful.
How has your Christian faith influenced your business philosophy, strategy, and management style?
I think a lot of things we talked about. I think, I want to believe I'm a quiet Christian in the sense that I don't think we're put in this world to judge anybody. I think we'll be judged when we leave this world in whatever fashion. I think that, and your mother and me have talked about this, we look at why a woman that grew up in the country with 2 kids when we got married, me who didn't have 2 pennies, nickels to rub together when I started to go to school. Why did all this happen? You know, why did this happen for us? And because, you know, it doesn't happen for a lot of people. And I think God gave us certain qualities and gifts that enable us to be successful. And I think through that grace is where we've had this chance to realize this. And our hope would be that by living that and treating people the way that they ought to be treated and sharing those rewards that have been given to us is the right path that we'll take and is right for everybody that's around us. So, but that's really, I don't have any right to judge anybody's beliefs or how they live their life. I don't mean I have to agree with everything that they do, but that's, you know, they'll cross that bridge at some point. I have a belief, though, that everything we've been given, and your mother believes the same way, is given to us through God's grace, and we need to be good stewards of that and put it to good use. And that doesn't mean that we're not driven to be successful. Doesn't mean we don't want to have a great life. But also we believe that when we leave this world, we want to believe that we've had a positive impact on others. Because that's what we're going to leave. We're not going to leave material things. That's, you know, that gets sold off and somebody else will enjoy it. But so that's probably our underpinning, you know. But I just don't want to be a person that ultimately is judgmental in the sense that I'm going to judge anybody else's. I mean, I agree with a behavior or somebody does, but that doesn't mean I'm the one that's the judge of that. So,
Yeah.
and I hope we do that. I want to believe that we, you know, people think, no, we try to do the right thing. I think that's what Jesus Christ did.